So I'm not going full tilt with this visual because I want to simplify things a little bit because this is multi-layered and complicated as it is. So you'll notice a couple things that we've talked about in the series. We see where Pluto is just down and at this point in time, it's literally at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And we've spoken of Uranus a lot and its significance in the current transits and upcoming transits in the spring. We've mentioned Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn, and showing its placement in Pisces. I'm also throwing Neptune up there, although we haven't talked about it much, but it bears mentioning because it's the ruler of Pisces, the modern ruler of Pisces, and it and Jupiter together rule this area of the sky. This is the area where the age cycle, I've verbalized all this, but never gave you any exact visuals during the talk. So that's what we're going to do today, a little bit. So in the age cycle, it goes like this. And in a regular fashion, things move like this. In other words, the sun does this, the moon does this, and when a planet does a retrograde fashion, it's going to go like that. But the grand cycle, the great year, cycle of the ages, if you will, the eons, moves, its general direction is this way. And so, as we have mentioned, we are moving out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces, and Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. And you'll see that in the season we're in now, both of those planets are involved in the area that we're dealing with. In the age cycle, this is where we're headed. And in the cycle of the time that we're living in now, Pluto has just passed through Capricorn the last 15 years and is now sitting at the earliest degrees of Aquarius. Now you see these two little symbols here. We're going to get to those in a minute. But I just want to kind of harken back on a couple things we've mentioned in this series so far. Now, Uranus had just stationed direct about a month ago when Pluto just touched down into Aquarius again at 20 degrees. And you'll notice that this angle here from Taurus to Capricorn, which is the cardinal degree of Earth, and this is a fixed Earth sign. This is a trine aspect, which is a positive one. When you're making a trine aspect, it's an easy turn. See, you can take that turn at a nice, comfortable clip without any problems because it's a trine. As opposed to a square, which goes like that, 90 degrees, a sharp turn that has to be negotiated in a different way. And we also mentioned in a more recent episode the upcoming conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus up in the sign of Taurus. And you'll notice that right now Jupiter's sitting in the sort of earlier degrees of Taurus, a little earlier anyway, and Uranus is a little further on. It's right around 19, 20 degrees right now. And in April, they're going to be together. And this is happening right after, and I'm going to get up and add this to the chart. And this is happening just a tiny click after the great eclipse, which is happening here in April in the sign of Aries. Just a couple weeks after this eclipse, these two planets are going to come together. And we've talked about all this in our series so far and touched on some of what that means. And now we're giving a bit of a visual to how this whole thing turns. We pointed out where Saturn is and its importance, and you'll notice the big boys are all represented. Mercury is not up here, and let's be fair, Mercury is never far from the sun, and the sun is in the sign of Aquarius, Pisces period right now, this time of year. Mercury is never far from the sun. It's always darting back and forth. So it's darting back and forth this part of the sky too. We look at the big boys. And now, to mark a couple things that we haven't spoken of yet with the personal planets, and that's what these two symbols are there for. These little cartoons are there to represent Mars and Venus. the two of the so-called personal planets. And they're here now to show you that they are passing now through the sign of Capricorn, and very, very soon, each of them during the month of February, each of them individually are going to pass over Pluto and have a conjunction with Pluto, which is very significant. We've spoken of how every pair of planets has its relationship, and they have their anniversary point, which is their conjunction, and then they have their cycle that goes into the square, the opposition, the second square, and then back to their birthday anniversary conjunction. In other words, Venus and Mars are both about to have an anniversary point with the planet Pluto right at the early degrees of Aquarius, 0, 1, 2 degrees. And we can look that up exactly, what degree point Pluto will be at when Venus crosses over into conjunction and when Mars crosses over into conjunction. And that is all happening in the month of February 2024. Mars and Venus both come in to their birthday / anniversary point with the planet Pluto. These inner personal planets with the outermost planet. Right at the beginning. And therefore, once again, we have this incredible synchronicity happening in the stars. Whereas Jupiter, or rather Uranus, has just blessed Pluto's entrance into Aquarius by the stationing of direct and trining the sign of Capricorn, through which Pluto has just passed. And upcoming in April, Jupiter is going to do the same. When it conjuncts Uranus and Taurus, it's going to bless this whole thing that's happening, because Jupiter is about giving blessings, pure and simple. And if it's happening in an aspect of any kind with anything, it's going to bless it. It's going to bring expansion and growth into that thing. And so it's going to bring expansion and growth into Taurus and all of its different meanings in people's lives and in the world and in the grand archetypal house system, if you will, being the archetypal second house. Huge conjunction happening here that's going to affecting all kinds of things in all kinds of ways. At the same time, it's going to be blessing this here. And in the same way, these two planets come in for their particular conversation with Pluto as Pluto begins its new journey for the next 20 years. And for the next 20 years, Venus and Mars will have a new relationship, a new cycle of relationship with Pluto as it passes through, because they will have several of these. During that 20-year period, they'll keep coming around because they travel much more quickly. Pluto takes 20 years or so in this case to pass through the sign. Venus and Mars take just over a year or so to go around the whole zodiac. So they're going to have a lot of these, and the first one is coming up. The very first one that's marking Pluto's new transit is coming up this month, right after Uranus has made its statement, and just before Jupiter is going to make its statement. Now, some of this stuff is going to be squaring during this time too. We don't have time to talk about that right now in this particular talk. I don't want to get too deep with it because I really want to try to lure people into this incredibly interesting and deep language, which is for everybody. And just because they didn't teach this to us in school doesn't mean they shouldn't have. I'll just put it that way. So a little simple snapshot, and believe me, this is simple, because I didn't start drawing the aspects or anything, and we're leaving the squares out for now as well. I just want to kind of see in the winter-spring period of this year, kind of where these things are sitting and where they're going to be. Pluto's going to be exactly where you see it for quite a while. It moves very slow. Saturn's going to creep, Neptune's going to creep, Jupiter's going to crawl a little bit, and Uranus is going to creep. This gives you a nice snapshot for the next 2 or 3 months, which will be interesting. And it could be heavy. It could be all those things: exciting, traumatic, heavy, and interesting. And I'm calling on all astrologers and astrology fans to help me figure this out and everything it means, because I'm just a really glorified astrology fan here and a yogi who believes strongly in the power of this language and in the power of teaching it to others, as many others as possible, because I believe in its power to help us understand life.